My name is Joe, and I am here to talk to you about innovation and decentralized trials. It's kind of a broad term, but I have a bit of a different perspective on it. I talked to some friends before we got here, and I like to show sometimes some sort of a picture to kind of see where maybe the last few years have been. I think in my first encounter with decentralized trials was probably 2014, 2015. We called them virtual trials back then. It's gone through a whole bunch of different names, and now thankfully we have some common terminology thanks to the DTRA, the Decentralized Trials and Research Alliance. But I like this meme here. It's the same dream. I try to innovate, but my feet keep sticking to the floor. And what I've seen is the biggest problem in our industry is that we just try to band-aid things a little bit, and we're not really willing to change the process to actually fix the problem, to do a little bit better. And I see this from a couple different angles. So there's been a lot of people here that I've met at Scope over the past 4 days, which has been, by the way, amazing since we're all sort of back finally. But what my perspective is that there's a lot of new people that have entered the market. It feels like 2014, 2015 again, going to various events like the CNS Summit and DPharm, where you meet all these new startups, and they are brand new to the industry. So some of you probably don't know me, and I wanted to sort of give you a perspective on where I've come from and where my opinions have been shaped over the years. So I've been in the eClinical technology industry and the clinical trials industry for about 20 years now, this year actually. And I've held a number of roles there, but for the past 15 or so, I've spent most of my time at 3 main companies. I would say probably the majority of the time, the past 12 years, I spent time at a company called Medidata, which happened to grow through this ecosystem from one product to many products and a consolidation of a platform. And we're seeing the same thing happening right now. In the decentralized trials is kind of the new wave of the next platform for clinical research that is more patient-centric, that is looking at how sites are wanting to work now that are more technology-enabled, and trying to, of course, speed everything up. My time here really saw all that happen in what I would consider the first wave. And when I came into that company in 2008, there were many people coming in there that came from all parts of different industries outside of pharma, from manufacturing, from finance, and they said, we know how this story ends. It's an operational efficiency work upheaval of new technology and automation that's just is going to consolidate an industry and hopefully bring it more efficient. And that's kind of what happened with a number of innovations, acquisitions, and new innovation in talking to folks like you, folks like that are in pharma and doing the work. So it was an amazing run. And then I went into pharma. And I became the head of clinical innovation at Bristol Myers Squibb. And this was a storied company, really over 100 years old, putting out some of the most life-saving drugs in the world, with a great team and amazing people. And but innovation is hard. Innovation is hard everywhere, right? And when I was there, I finally went from those 15 years as a vendor, now a client. And it was sort of the tables are turned now. So what is it like being on the inside, solving real problems, coming up against people that just are comfortable where they are. They all want to change, but they don't know how. And it's very hard to move a machine to that next level. I have a humbling experience and a brand new appreciation for doing what I do from the technology side. Now living inside pharma was an eye-opening experience. And I'll tell you that now, in my role at Medable, kind of going back into tech again, I have a brand new appreciation for where this work needs to be done and how you can actually affect change within a large or small pharma organization to really change the game and try to innovate successfully. Even though you're going to be told no 5 times, that 6th time will get you to bring home really something great. So something I wanted to share with you, a friend of mine who works with the Janssen's clinical innovation team made this slide for an event a couple years ago. And I really liked it because she kind of took just a statement and turned it into a math problem and showed her work on the slide. And so this is very true from within pharma, that people will only change when the pain of not changing is greater than the pain of change itself. I think all of you can probably relate to this, right? If what we're doing is fine and it doesn't really kill my job and really doesn't then I'm not going to do anything. However, the people that are doing the work in the jobs that we're all trying to implement new technology and new things in, they're not really, their job may be okay and might be okay, it could be better, but it's the higher level things, the aggregate view of what those little jobs all roll up to. Time to market, new submissions to the regulatory authorities, getting to market before your competitors, that all adds up. And so the people that are doing the job don't always feel the pain. That is the bigger snapshot view of what's really happening. And that's the problem, is to convince people that maybe aren't having too much pain to change for the greater good. And I found that to be quite a challenge within a large organization like that. But some of my learnings from my time in pharma that could apply to everyone in this room. There's a ton of technology companies here, as well as CROs and pharma. So this is really all to you to kind of take my learnings of being on both sides. When I was there, you find out who they finally are when they say they won't let us do that. Any idea who they are? What I found out was they was really an inspection report from 4 years ago that caused a mountain of process from people to say, don't ever let that happen again. And we overcomplicated something that maybe was seen as high risk, or maybe wasn't too high risk, but they just never wanted it to happen again, and this mountain was created. And so they are usually that. Now that's a big deal. You know, if you get flagged at an inspection, that's a big deal. But to really find out that everyone just sort of refers to that, but they don't really talk about it in a way was frustrating, but I had a new appreciation for it when I was on the inside. Change management matters more. Innovation to me was change management in disguise. And in pharma, I think that they care more about change management sometimes because that's implementation, that's actual automation, and that's actually driving adoption. So anyone here that's working on new technology to try and get their technology into a new company to try and really make an effect and have an impact, come with some sort of change management plan that will help them, because everyone in pharma with an army of consultants is trying to do that, and they need your help. The study teams need to buy into your vision. They will be the ones that will block everything. And because their entire being of being in their job is to get this drug that they've been working on for years to market. And anything that's going to stand in their way is not going to work. And they don't want to have anything add risk to that. So that is a huge deal. They need to be on board or nothing new works. So that's important. You cannot prove the ROI of innovation while you're in the middle of it. I think there's a lot of case studies on this to say that innovation needs to come as a mindset from the top down, and you have to understand that some things are going to fail. And if you're in an organization where no one has any patience and no one has the ability to take failure for what it is and learn from it, and they only are concerned with speed and efficiency, and then innovation won't work. You have to be able to say, I'm in this job to make my job obsolete so that I can go on to the next thing and keep innovating. And I'm not making your job obsolete, I'm actually going to make your job better, but my job should be made obsolete as a result of me doing this. So the ROI is really going for the bigger picture, not for something that's going to happen in 12 months, right? Therapeutic area leads need a digital health strategy. I found that many companies in our industry seem to be doing better in innovation, and especially in decentralized trials, where they have teams internally throughout the organization, whether it's usually in global drug development, that they have digital health strategies at the therapeutic area level. And therefore, companies that are here that are looking to target their new innovation or their new widget or something really start to get successful at a therapeutic level first, and try and own that area and try it out in that area that has the highest impact. Then you can spread out. Don't try and be everything to everybody so fast, because it just will never get traction. But internally, these companies, they need to have someone who's thinking about what are the digital health strategies for our therapeutic area, for oncology, for cardiovascular, for immunology. What are the unique needs of our patients, and what kind of problems are we trying to solve? Otherwise, you're just throwing generic technology at a bigger problem that doesn't really get noticed at this level. And again, back to the other point, the study teams need to buy into your vision. They're all aligned to therapeutic areas. So the hard truth about innovation culture, this is a Harvard Business Review article that I read not too long ago, is that they're seen as and depicted as pretty fun. I'll be honest, that's why I wanted to get into it. It sounded really fun. and I love doing stuff like this. And they're characterized by a tolerance for failure and a willingness to experiment. But they are very hard to sustain. I'm sure many of you have been in this industry for a long time. You've seen innovation projects come and go, teams come and go, and this is no different. The trick is to counterbalance it with some, frankly, less fun behaviors. And I like this quote: "An intolerance for incompetence, rigorous discipline, brutal candor, and a high level of individual accountability and strong leadership." That is very true. The successful innovation teams in our industry do have this. The ones that have grown to 20, 50, 80 people have figured this part out. So it's just an interesting quote that I wanted to share with you, because it is real, because it doesn't last forever. It's not meant to, but for it to be sustainable, it's not all fun. It's really, you need that discipline and how to actually operate. So a couple weeks before Scope, I did some LinkedIn polls to understand the answers to some questions. It's a very unscientific poll with LinkedIn, but I put a poll out there. Some of you may have seen it. And I wanted to bring some of that data back to here to share. So what specific part of a decentralized trial strategy do you think will be the most disruptive to pharma in a good way? Now, mind you, LinkedIn polls only let you put 4 choices, so I put my 4 choices that I thought was the most important, at least the ones that I've been dealing with most recently. Number one, and we've seen this in the past couple days with a couple of you have seen presentations from the team at CVS, that people online chose retail pharmacies as sites as one of the more disruptive areas, with coming out close second and third is direct-to-patient supply chain, so direct-to-patient shipping of drugs and supplies, and e-source enabled clinical sites. And I think this is telling, because we have a different level of sites coming up. You're going to find that many in decentralized trials, you're not going to reduce sites. Remember in the beginning, everyone said, "Oh, the siteless trial is going to happen, and we're going to eliminate sites." We're probably going to double the amount of sites in our clinical trials. But they're not going to be the usual big academic centers or hospitals. They're going to be the pharmacy, the lab down the street, the individual physician that wants to get involved and now made easier to participate and run a trial. But you're going to see new things where new entities are appearing as sites, and pharma now has to deal with the fact that there are going to be multiple types of sites in their trials. Also, eSource will supercharge decentralized trials. There's projects out there with Transcelerate, HL7, SCDM. The last 2 down here, direct data capture and EHR integration, are finally happening. Clinical sites are going to push back on sponsors that do not let them work the way they want to work. This is important to know, especially at the big centers. They are digitizing their own operations for their own benefit, and we need to be able to accept that data. But those systems that they're implementing are now more standardized, and they're now compliant with regulations as opposed to not. So now the data actually could work in a pharma environment. You're going to see more of this. The next wave of successful clinical sites will digitally transform their own operations because they have to. And you're going to see many companies over the next 1 to 3 years now selling to sites, or potentially giving things to sites for free and be paid for by pharma to increase that adoption. There's a few companies here today that have been presenting that concept. It's going to pick up so that they can actually improve their own operations for themselves, and as a result, feed that back to pharma to improve the way they work together. Second survey. Do you think the biggest barrier to decentralized trials adoption, what is it? Right now, the top poll was fragmented technology. And like I said before, when I did this in 2008, we're in the same place again. All these companies have now appeared doing micro pieces of the process. They're all eventually going to come together at some point. So everyone that is working on those types of technologies need to prioritize user experience to accelerate adoption. That is so important. Make sure your user experience is better than good, because that will be the thing that differentiates you in many ways. Fragmentation will eventually consolidate. We know how the story ends. There'll be many acquisitions and consolidations. The regulators are not the scapegoats, and I'm getting the time point, so I'm going to push back. So here's my recommendations on DCT. For sponsors, create a space to reward risk-taking within your organizations. Align the incentives internally with your own teams and become sponsor of choice externally, and co-create with your suppliers. Invest in them and they will invest in you. To CROs and sites, embrace this new change in business models. We know that your world is going to change with the advent of technology to bring more efficiency, so embrace it. Invest in technology and partnerships to digitize your own operations for you, your staff, and your margins. And demand better, push back when appropriate. This is true because people will listen. And to technology vendors, win over the clinical development teams. That is so important to get them on board. Stay focused on KPIs and success goals to avoid never-ending pilots. We were very big on that one when I was in pharma, and that was very important to make sure that these pilots don't go on and on and on. You need to have that goal you're going for and make it small. And help innovation teams sell their business case internally, and it will help everybody. So I appreciate your time. It's great to see everybody back at Scope again, and the next 1 to 3 years is going to be very exciting for decentralized trials, so I thank you.
Thank you so much, Joe, for this very interesting, innovative conversation on DCTs. We have time for a couple of questions from the audience. Please come to the mic.
You suggested that technology teams help innovation teams essentially, push innovation into clinical study teams. What have you seen as really innovative approaches that technology teams have taken in order to do that?
It's hard because in larger companies, the study teams are walled off by procurement. And if you try and send them emails, they'll just delete them. If you try and call them, they'll say, I don't know, go call my other people. I can't do anything until they say yes. The trick is to win them over in something that actually interests them. So it's solution selling is what it is. But you need to find what you find. It's cyber stalking. You need to go find them online, spend some time. The blast emails don't work. When I went into pharma and I got all the emails that I used to have my colleagues send to people, I deleted them. I was like, how bad? These aren't working. The blast emails don't work. You need to get personal with them to identify and pull at their strings of what really hits them. And then they will listen, and then they might recommend you to say, hey, we should go look at these people. The hardest part is getting through to them with a generic email because it doesn't work. Because then they just defer to their other machine that's in charge of finding new solutions.